Well, hey, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Technology Sources Virtual Roundtable. Today's subject, why fleet managers are looking to AI as their co-pilot. This has become something that has really generated some interest. We've got a large group that's joining us today. Once again, I'm your host, Rob Olson, Chief Revenue Officer for Technology Source. Technology Source, if you don't know us, we're a solution partner that builds unique, best-in-breed solutions for our trusted advisors and their clients. By leveraging a network of over 500 providers in managed IT, cybersecurity, telecom, mobility, AI, and analytics, we design solutions tailored to reduce operational expenses, improve efficiencies, and transform the customer experience. The virtual roundtable happens each month. During the webinar, we highlight one of our carefully curated and highly unique solutions that our trusted advisors and their clients have found to be extremely valuable. This month is no different as we'll be discussing the benefits of the amazing Azuga AI-powered fleet management solution. Tell you a little bit about Azuga, and we'll get into our experts here. Azuga is a leading provider of AI-powered fleet management and telematics solutions. They help organizations improve driver safety, reduce costs, and optimize fleet operations through real-time insights. Combining GPS tracking, video telematics, driver behavior analytics, and engagement tools, Azuga empowers fleets to prevent accidents, boost efficiency, and build a culture of safer, smarter driving across every vehicle and driver on the road. Except Chris, your son. We can't seem to help him, right? But hey, I want to welcome our guests, Chris Johnson, Vice President of Business Development over at Azuga, and Tracy Avanzo, Director of Business Development at Azuga. This has been a topic that our team, our trusted advisors love to hear about and learn about. The product's exciting, and what you do with it is amazing. I think the end users around the call today are going to find this particularly interesting, as most people, including me, didn't see this prior to the call. So, Chris, welcome. Good to see you.
Thank you so much for having me today, Rob.
I know you're in New Jersey. I think the weather's been, from what I've seen, kind of awful by you guys. Is that an accurate statement or?
Oh, it's the typical March here in New Jersey. A little bit of wind and rain, and we can we can manage it okay, except for the stuff on the front lawn that I have to go clean up later. But besides that, we're good to go, Rob.
Well, happy St. Patrick's Day.
Same. I know you can't tell, but there's some Irish in here, so I appreciate that.
A little bit, yeah, sure. Hey, so we've got a few questions we wanted to walk through today to understand what Azuga is doing and what's doing differently. Because from what I've researched, it's an amazing platform. We're going to get into some of the details behind it here in a second. But I think one of the key things that struck me about the Azuga application is the fact that safety is at the top of everyone's minds, not just for their driver safety and the safety of their vehicles, but also the liability risks that can occur. So why don't we start off with a question on safety for both of you? Love to hear your input. What are the biggest safety risks that fleets face today, and how can telematics help fleet managers identify and address those risks in real time?
All
You
right,
can go
great
first there,
question,
Chris.
Rob. And you know, when we do what we do, which is consult with fleet customers or advisors who are serving their customers who own and operate commercial fleets, which is not just trucking, by the way. We're talking about any commercial vehicle, from a Ford F-150 or a Ford Transit to a pickup truck, all the way through a tractor trailer. Yeah, those ones that try to run me off the New Jersey Turnpike occasionally.
Right.
Uh, you know, when it comes to the biggest risks today, if you own and operate a commercial fleet, it's really around distracted driving, right? And the usual suspects of speeding, hard braking, which is an indication of distracted driving, and of course, fatigue. The difference now is that fleets don't have to wait for an accident to understand risk. With this telematics and AI cameras and the way you framed it up beautifully in your introduction, Rob, a software as a service solution powered by AI in an IoT format, right? What we want to provide is fleet managers or safety managers real-time alerts the moment that risky behavior happens, along with video content, right? What does that do? Well, that can enable immediate coaching instead of reactive reporting, And for a tech advisor, this is where the IoT for me becomes a very strong entry point because you're introducing real-time operational data into the business, which naturally expands into connectivity and even cybersecurity since that data needs to be transmitted and protected. And if you're a fleet manager, this is what keeps you up at night. And anything that you can do in your duty of care to be able to move the needle a little bit and make sure that you're making sure you're getting your drivers safe back to their families at night with best in class technology like this.
Mhm,
That's what
mhm.
we're trying to solve for in helping with those biggest safety risks that we had just identified.
Yeah, I did some research and it was amazing to me the results. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Um, so here's what I found with Azuga. Your clients can expect a 98% reduction in hard braking, a 57% reduction in traffic violations, 69% reduction in hard acceleration, 19% reduction in claims reported. And this is the big one, 72% of companies report a reduction in accidents. So those are some great stats. Kind of points to the success of the platform, I think.
Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. And in the end, that's a testament to us going to our customer base and also to third parties and trying to really measure our impact on really what monitoring safety in a fleet telematics solution, which is the usual business, is doing GPS tracking. It's helping with operational efficiency. It's helping with maintenance and compliance and managing the fleet. But you drilling down on those safety aspects, I appreciate that because that's where we try to come at from a competitive differentiation perspective. Because in the end, we want to reduce the frequency and cost of accidents and claims, which, based on some of your statistics that you researched, we are. All right. And then more importantly, we want to make sure that those drivers are driving the absolute safest possible and given their companies they work for an opportunity to reduce insurance costs,
That's a big
right?
one.
Because a safe fleet with a safe driving score and way to prove that you are a safer fleet beyond just your what they call your loss runs. And that's what the insurance companies use to see how much of a risk you are. Besides what vertical you're in and how many vehicles you have on the road and when you're traveling and, this, that, or the other thing, they're looking to see how much premium have you paid. And then more importantly, how much has insurance companies paid you for your claims? And if that's off balance, we all know what the unfortunate repercussions of that are. And that's what we're looking to meaningfully control with those statistics that you just mentioned as an actual, like a backup to the argument that is indeed something that can make a difference.
Well, rarely when you're looking at a product, do you have the type of data that Azuga provides to clients that are considering the service. And what I find, and I think our viewers will find, is that the service pays for itself with all the savings and efficiency gains that you receive. So, Tracy, is there anything that we missed that you want to add to the conversation?
No, I think you guys covered it. I mean, I think at the end of the day, we want those drivers to also get home safely, right? We want them to be home with their families at the end of the day. And
I want
so,
to get home safe too, so I appreciate that.
yeah, I mean, and that's our goal, right? If you know, we have a lot of ways to say we're successful in life, but I feel like what Chris and I do every day is if we can ensure that folks are getting home safely, it's definitely worth it.
Chris, you mentioned a little bit about cost. So I want to ask this next question because it does pertain to cost. Many fleets, as you can imagine, are under pressure to control costs. How can telematics data help reduce fuel waste, idle time, and other operational inefficiencies?
Yeah, so you're touching upon it, and it's around the ROI, right? And we already discussed a little bit about what the safety focused return on investment can be, which is safer drivers, less accidents, less frequency and cost of accidents and claims, less insurance costs ultimately. But going back to the meat and potatoes of it, from a fleet telematics solution, uh, and trying to help identify places that we can control costs today, and it's even more important to mention this in the current economic state, fuel is one of the largest fleet expenses a fleet faces. So telematics, we directly try to address that by identifying things like excessive idling, inefficient routing, And that aggressive driving we mentioned from a safety perspective also burns a lot of fuel. Think about a sudden acceleration off of a street light or a stop sign, which is just wasting fuel, unnecessary to have to go that fast from a stop. And that burns up a lot of fuel. So when you can monitor that, because you can't manage necessarily what you can't see, right? Fleets typically could see a double-digit reduction in idle time, right? By being able to track idling and more importantly, warn the driver in real time that idling is occurring and coaching them in real time, maybe with a beeper or a buzzer in the cab that reminds them maybe to shut the key off, right? And that results in the meaningful fuel savings once they have visibility and accountability. That's the key, right? And then obviously route optimization and utilization insights that a telematics platform can provide also helps fleets do more with fewer vehicles. So from an advisor perspective, that's the clear ROI story. For us, it makes it easier to attach connectivity because the data is directly tied to measurable cost savings, right? And from your fleet perspective, if you're a fleet manager, anything to hear that's music to your ears when you're saying, I can help you reduce fuel costs.
Well, the fuel cost reduction is real. And statistics are showing that there's a 15% reduction in fuel expenses when you're using a fleet management platform such as Azuga. You also touched on insurance, 10% reduction on insurance. But there's another aspect to this, and that's the cost of employees, which is probably the highest cost for any business. 6% reduction in hourly and overtime expenses. So it's just very interesting to me that you can benefit in so many ways by using the Azuga platform from a perspective of just reducing cost. Tracy, was there anything that you'd like to point out or add that we silly guys missed?
I think you guys are doing great. It's hard to follow Chris, he's kind of the master. So I think you guys touched on everything.
Well, great. So, Chris and Tracy, what kinds of measurable improvements do fleets typically see when they start monitoring driver behavior and coaching drivers using telematic insights?
Yeah. So Rob, that's the fun part. Like that first 30 days when we work with
Yeah.
the client and do that success metrics and actually show the differences. Once a fleet starts actively monitoring and coaching, the improvements are fast and measurable. It's common to see about, say, a 50 to 90% reduction in harsh driving events within a few months, which you backed up with some of those statistics that you did some research on. So thank you for making me
Yeah.
look good and proving
A
the
lot of
case.
work, lots of
Yeah.
work.
And as we all know, like, what does that mean? Again, less accidents, lower insurance premiums, reduced wear and tear, and ultimately even, better driver retention. Why? If you're a driver, you don't necessarily like being tracked, and you don't
Right.
necessarily like having a camera, in the dashboard. Forward facing is fine because there's an exoneration perspective there. God forbid there was an accident that occurred and it wasn't your fault. You have video, right? But the AI dash cams that exist today that help facilitate driver behavior coaching and monitoring from a driver behavior monitoring modification perspective, those are cameras that point inwards, right? And that's the stuff that measures distracted driving, using your cell phone, looking at the window for too long, things like that, where we want to make sure the drivers have an incentive to keep 10 and 2 on the wheel and don't drive distracted, right? And we do that with a driver behavior coaching and scoring solution, right? So to get even more measurable improvement, what we try to do as differentiator is go from the GPS and camera gotcha to great job, Mr. or Mrs. Driver, because this is your driver score this week. And because you were at that 90%, we're going to give you an electronic gift card to your favorite big box retailer as part of the telematics solution, right? And good drivers, they get recognized. They don't get managed. And I'm always, every time I talk to a fleet and a safety person or a fleet manager, I always want them to introduce that component into the culture, that it's a positive right? And then when you do that, that's when telematics evolves into a performance management tool powered by IoT data. It's not just a tracking solution anymore, right? And then, those measurable impacts seem to compound upon themselves in a meaningful and actionable way.
Yeah, I think as a driver, to your point earlier about being uneasy with the camera aimed at yourself, uh, the Azuga platform's AI capabilities of noticing when a driver's not looking at the road or looking down at their phone or even sleeping could be things that save that driver from a potential accident that would have otherwise not been, they would otherwise not been notified of. So I think it protects the drivers as well. I mean, if you may not like the camera in your face, but if it prevents you from getting in an accident and losing your CDL, that's probably not a bad thing. Tracy, is there anything you'd like to add?
You know,
It's a tough
I
one.
think just adding on to the rewards program, I mean, to
Yeah,
me, that's kind of one of my favorite parts of the platform. No one wants to be at the bottom of any sort of list amongst their peers. So as you see those driver scores on your mobile app, you know, consciously you're going to start driving better, and then
positive reinforcement.
all
Yeah,
the things happen from there, where it's the wear and tear on the vehicle, they're not speeding anymore. All the scores are getting better. That all helps with the insurance and all the different reductions in expenses that you mentioned at the beginning of the call. It's like magic. And the drivers
yeah,
feel good about it. It becomes gamification, and it
sure.
becomes kind of fun for them. Um, we have several customers where the driver's significant others want to make sure that they're bringing home those gift cards, right? So it really rounds out to be a very positive experience versus Big Brother.
And I should add that that's a unique attribute of your platform. Nobody else has that. It's actually, am I wrong in saying it's patented? Is that
It is
correct?
patented.
Yeah,
You're
so
correct.
that's a very unique feature that only exists with Azuga, and I agree with you. I mean, turning this into a positive reward for doing a good job is much better than using the stick, right? Use that carrot. Accidents, as you might expect, are a major source of cost and liability. How can technologies like automatic collision detection and incident reporting help fleets respond faster and protect themselves from false claims?
Yeah. So those are one of the best advancements I've seen in my illustrious 20-year fleet
20.
telematics career, and watching the
Started when you
power
were
of the,
five.
I know, but watching the power of the AI and the IoT come together to enable an automatic collision detection alert where the incident is captured instantly, even if the driver couldn't report it in real time. As you know, any dash cam is continuously recording. The
Sure,
system records video before and after the event that gives full context. So after the event occurs, there's this cool little device inside of a telematics hardware component that you install in the vehicle, whether it's the camera or the GPS unit, and it's called an accelerometer, right? And once you trigger that, it triggers a G-force event, which in turn is potentially an accident. So that notification can go out in real time to notify somebody back at home base that the driver just got into an incident, and now the video just came along for the ride, to help manage the situation. That allows the fleets to respond immediately, potentially send assistance, and most importantly, document exactly what happened. In many cases, video evidence helps exonerate drivers and reduces fraudulent claims. That's the bottom line.
sure,
And to
sure,
be able to
sure.
do that in real time, I mean, that's an excellent bonus. In the end, though, for advisors, this also ties into a broader conversation around data security and compliance, since that footage is critical evidence, and you also want to make sure that the fleet is using a tech stack that is the most secure as possible to be able to house this, very critical driver behavior and video data that potentially could expose risk to the customer. So again, it's great that we have the ability to manage an incident on the scene through the use of the camera and the real-time video alerts. And it's also great to be able to lead with a conversation to also help the fleet customer understand how to make sure that that data is being, housed correctly, stored correctly, and secured correctly as well. Because you don't want that data getting out into the world, if you know what I mean.
Sure. Tracy, anything from you like to add?
Yeah, I would say, as Chris mentioned, the instantaneous, you know that that activity has taken place. And I think being able to send the documentation right to the driver if there's an officer on the scene, or if you're needing to send it to your insurance company, it's all encompassing, right? It's time and date stamped. It shows where the vehicle was hit. It shows the G-force, which could reflect whether or not there's soft tissue damage, as Chris mentioned, on false claims, right? So
Mhm.
great report. I hope nobody has to use it, but it's a very, very good report to be able to have as your backup or as your evidence to what transpired.
Yeah, and if you're viewing this video on YouTube, I would definitely suggest reach out to Technology Source at info@technologysource.com and do the demo. Take a demo with the Azuga team. Take a look at how this tool works because I think what struck me the most about it was the fact that you can manage all this while having to stare at a screen all day, right? You can do other things and then come back and take a look at the end of the day and see where you got little red dots where there was an incident with something going on in your fleet and know exactly what was happening and then respond to that. It just makes things a lot more efficient for businesses that don't have endless headcount, which I don't think that exists anymore. Um, I wanted to ask a little bit about driver engagement. Driver engagement is often overlooked. How do programs like driver scoring and rewards help build a culture of safety and accountability? Culture is the key word there, right? Within the fleet.
Yeah, I mean, let's go a little deeper into that concept we've already kind of explored, which is the driver scorecard and the
Yeah.
gamification and rewards. The way it actually works is there's a mobile application that downloads to a driver's cell phone or tablet. As we all know, I think the statistics are 80% of all field service management drivers now use some sort of a mobile device to help operationalize, whether it's job dispatching, route optimization, work order management, time card things of that nature. So we all know how important it is to have a mobile device in the vehicle to facilitate the workflow from a operational perspective. The way it works is that there's an app on the actual phone or the tablet that helps stack rank the driver
Hmm.
versus their peers. So the score is a combination of how much you drive, but more importantly, how much you speed, how much you're idling, how much you're hard braking, how much you're sudden accelerating, how much you're hard cornering, which is also heck on the suspension when you're peeling through an intersection and making a very hard left or a hard right turn. Doesn't do anything from a maintenance perspective or a tire wear and tear perspective. Bridgestone, of course, would make me say that, right?
Right.
So when it comes down to it, that we want the driver to see their score versus their peers because we want to introduce an element of competition. And when drivers compete, and they're competing hopefully for the best score for the week, or more importantly for a gift card that we have built into the platform to actually use to send directly to the smartphone or the the phone or the tablet an actual QR code. You can go in at your local, say, Best Buy or Amazon or Dunkin' Donuts and go enjoy the spoils of being the best driver for that week. And when we do that, when you implement that culture of driver buy-in to know, for them to know what their scores are, right? Very similar to probably some of the folks on this call have already tried from a consumer perspective, downloading an app on their phone from State Farm, right? Where, don't mess with my discount, right? Or Geico or Progressive. They all have these apps you download to your phone at the onset of a policy that's measuring your driver behavior so they can, in quotes, give you a discount. Now,
Sure.
I have four teenage drivers. I didn't get a discount from
Yeah,
Progressive,
would
as you could
imagine so.
imagine. So, yeah, even though we all have Azuga and we all enjoy watching their videos, that's for sure. In the end, that gamification, those scorecards, that incentive, that creates that culture where drivers compete. They're safer. They're not just trying to avoid penalties. And that shift is what drives that long-term behavioral change, right? And that to me is just a great example of how IoT data like this can influence human behavior and culture, not just provide basic standard reporting.
But it's all carrot and no stick in this case. And I think that's a positive spin that Azuga puts on the platform from that perspective. Tracy, heading over to you. Anything you want to add to that?
Just my favorite part of the platform. It
It
just really
is.
sets us apart and it
It's
really
fun.
changes that mindset.
Yep.
So I think Chris, rounded it off very nicely that it just changes that behavior and long term. There's cost savings to the company, there's the safety perspective, and they're not worrying about, they're watching me or Big Brother. So changing that
Good point.
mindset of the
Yeah,
driver.
no, good point. Um, Maintenance and tire costs, certainly another major expense for fleets. How can combining telematics data with a nationwide service network like Bridgestone and Firestone help fleets better manage vehicle maintenance?
Yeah.
Is that Chris?
We're a Bridgestone company, right?
Right.
And for those who don't know Bridgestone, right, who fully own and operate Azuga, Bridgestone is the largest tire company in the world. And they also, in the US, own over 2,300 Firestone complete maintenance care locations.
Hmm.
So when you try to marry that up, what is telematics doing? You plug in a device, or nowadays, sometimes you just give us the VIN because this data now is resident on the vehicle because vehicles now have their own telematics and their own SIM cards in them. And it's potentially to be able to pull that data into our platform as well as older vehicle that don't have that capability, and you have to plug in a physical data logger somewhere in the vehicle. So either way, you have full coverage to provide maintenance insights. And what do you get? You get when you plug in a unit or you're using what we call OEM data connectivity, you get
Hmm.
the year of the vehicle, the make, the model, the VIN, the odometer, the diagnostic trouble codes, right?
Hmm.
And that's the
That's right.
stuff that usually you only would get if you went to your annual inspection and plug in a little device underneath the steering column and pull out what they call DTCs, which can give you insights into the vehicle's health. But you only can do that once a year, or maybe you have a shop and your guys are doing this on a quarterly basis. The solution can help not only provide visibility that it's time for an oil change because it's been 5,000 miles since the last one and give a proactive real-time alert to help
Hmm.
you manage by exception, but the system also has the capability to trigger a DTC in real time. So you can get in front of an engine issue or a transmission issue or a tire issue and be able to help act upon that before there's even a more meaningful failure, right? So that's the great part of getting that real-time maintenance visibility for both preventative and predictive maintenance insights to help better manage the fleet. And then what makes Azuga unique in this is the connection between Firestone's nationwide service network. Because just going from an Azuga perspective, being owned by a tire company, we provide in our portal the maintenance insights and we help the fleet make it actionable, right? If they're a class 1 through 3 fleet, which means work trucks, ones that can fit into the
Right.
bay at a Firestone location, which is the vast majority of commercial fleets, by the way, um, then we actually built into our platform the ability to schedule service at the nearest Firestone location to that vehicle, right? So you can start using Firestone as a complement or a primary maintenance provider to help better manage the fleet, especially in the SMB, where you might not have your own shop, right? Or you might not yet have this solved, or you're using your local providers and you don't really have this streamlined in a meaningful way, right? And then if you ask Tracy really nicely, magical discounts on tires and services can appear for any fleet customer who's using Azuga, right? And a 10% discount on tires.
That's substantial. That could pay for
Yeah.
the application by
Yeah.
itself.
Yeah.
Another ROI point. I mean, think about it. I mean, how much do we spend on tires? Everyone who owns a fleet, their biggest expenses is the payroll of the driver, right? Fuel and tires, right? Tires ain't cheap on the commercial side of the business.
No.
We're talking about 250 a pop, for a decent work truck tire. And getting a discount on that, coupled with all the other cool stuff, Rob, that you've mentioned from an ROI perspective. Come on, let's bring together this IoT data, physical service execution, and then create a more complete and actionable solution for our customers and our advisors who are advising them.
So you're driving along and the vehicle has a warning light of some sort or a low tire pressure warning, and then you can then quickly locate a Bridgestone or Firestone location near them and drive directly to that shop.
Amen. Right from the
Oh, that's
portal.
pretty crazy. Tracy, what did we miss?
The only thing I would add to that is Chris mentioned preventative. And what I really love is that you're able to schedule or to set up reminders. So if I got an oil change today and in 5,000 miles, I want to be reminded, I could set it up to remind me. I could have it sent to my mechanic or a third party mechanic. You're able to schedule those reminders and stay on top of the health of your vehicle as well. And then once in the portal, you can also add things like receipts, or maybe there's an issue under the hood and they take a picture of it, or a part that they need to order. You can upload those as well to the maintenance section of our portal. So really great way to stay on top of things. I like to call it kind of a maintenance e-file. It requires your participation, but you've got all of your information there and you're not searching for receipts. When was the last time we did a brake job, or where's the receipt for that part that I ordered? You can store it all in the portal.
No, great points. I also want to point out, because I don't think we mentioned it, you did mention the 10% savings on tires. There's also a service discount. And I don't recall, what is the service discount for folks that are enrolled in the Azuga program? Is it, I thought it was 10 to
Yeah,
30% in some
it's
cases.
so 10% off tires and service.
Okay,
And
that's
the
10% across.
tires are the Bridgestone tires.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you mentioned 2,400 locations. Is that correct?
Right around there, Troy, between there's a Firestone brand and we have a few other brands that are in the network as well. But as you can imagine, it's extreme nationwide coverage.
Sounds like it. So the big piece of this is the AI and the data analytics. Both of those are becoming more important in fleet management. How are modern telematics platforms using AI to help fleet managers move from reactive decisions to proactive fleet management?
Yeah. So I'll tell you what we leverage today from an AI perspective, and I'll give you a little teaser on on the product roadmap. So AI is what's being used, what they call on the edge, which is in the actual camera device that we utilize for the video telematics component of our solution. And that's an AI algorithm that can detect in real time the drivers doing those behaviors that you want to monitor and help coach, right? So if they put a cigarette or a vape to their mouth, it will come up as, a smoking detected, right? If they are eating or drinking during their trip, which may or may not be part of corporate policy, just know that you could pick that up. But when they're closing their eyes, right, the camera sees that. The AI algorithm can see that and then give a quick audible beep to wake them up, right? When they're on their phone, distracted, maybe on YouTube or TikTok or something, the camera will physically say, distracted driving detected. And it will give, with that AI, it'll give the driver 3 seconds to correct their action before they
Hmm.
get anybody notified up above. So what drivers need to understand is that it's although it's a dash cam and it's continuously recording its SD card, the insights that we provide with that cloud connectivity, right? With the SIM that we have plugged in that provides multi-carrier, data connectivity to get all this cool AI and IoT data into the cloud, right? They actually have an opportunity to correct their driving action before they get tattletaled on by the camera, which will result in a coaching session. Okay. So that's how we use AI today, as well as built into our solution from an algorithmic perspective, say with tires, right? Not only can we measure high tire pressure and low tire pressure, but putting AI algorithms around it, we can help detect slow leaks, right? So a slow leak AI algorithm to give a fleet manager or a maintenance manager an insight that go and get that tire fixed before you get the call that that vehicle's on the side of the road. Right now it's out of service and you got to go and jump through hoops to go get it serviced, to go get it towed, go change the tire, whatever the case may be, to help as much as you can eliminate downtime and keep those vehicles on the road. From the future perspective, we've all seen it, right? We're a web-based portal, right? You have these devices, you plug them into the vehicles, and then you log on to azuga.com, right? And you see all this magic happen on the web. All these actionable insights, right, that we're bringing in with a little AI cool sprinkling on it from a optimization perspective, a compliance perspective, an efficiency perspective, and a safety perspective. But what you want to eventually do is not log on to our portal and then click a tab, the maintenance tab, the safety tab, the reporting tab, then go to
Right.
the reports, run the report, have to put in your time
Oh, right.
frame, the vehicles. You want to be able to talk to the platform and say, hey, do me a favor. Could you just give me everybody's driver score from last week? Or are there any maintenance issues I should be aware of? And then you want to press send to an AI internal chatbot. And you want that data to be delivered to you on a silver platter. That is on Azuga's AI roadmap, right? Is to harness the power of AI and to utilize these new wonderful AI tools to deliver these insights to a fleet manager or a safety manager on a silver platter, either reactively or proactively. When they log in, they'll get a list of AI powered insights that they need to look into. The driver that needs to be coached, the vehicle that needs to be maintained, maybe an optimized efficiency over here or there. And we already have those platforms in place, right? With a complementary solution to Azuga we call Safety IQ. And Safety IQ is already delivering these AI powered insights, Rob, on a silver platter. So instead of having to go look for the driver score and look for the driver, we'll tell you, hey, this is a quick summary of how your fleet is doing, and these is what you should look into. So we're already seeing it now, and we're already building that into the common interface. And it's really exciting times to watch how AI just streamlines the experience and basically becomes our little fleet manager assistant.
Yeah, no, it's interesting to me how everything that Azuga is doing in its platform is to keep that vehicle on the road, whether it's preventing accidents, whether it's monitoring the repair and the vehicle's capabilities at that time to ensure it stays on the road. Because if that asset's sitting in a garage somewhere, it's not earning any revenue for the business, and that seems like that's at the core of what you're doing. Tracy, is there anything that Chris missed that you want to pick on?
The only thing I'll just add a few things that I think are important from the camera perspective as well as Chris mentioned the beeping. You can also have audible alerts. So rolling stop alerted if they're tailgating, things like that. So that's also the AI picking that up. And that's a really great feature that we have in our cameras that we launched recently.
Good call
Wow.
out, Tracy. And the biggest one I was remiss in mentioning is accident, uh, not just detected, but collision warning,
Right.
right? A lot of vehicles, a lot of commercial vehicles don't yet have built in the ADAS solutions that we have or we enjoy in our vehicles that we drive, right? Where it gives you that warning that you're following too close or an impact is imminent. And to your point, the camera solution gives that keep yourself in your lane warning. And more importantly, if there's a pedestrian or you're about to have an impact, you get a notification. And that just adds and stacks to the ability to minimize the frequency and cost of accidents and claims. So great call out on the additional AI functions, not just from a driver perspective, but Tracy reminding us on that road facing camera and that road facing AI, what that also can do to actually help mitigate accidents in real time by helping coach the driver.
Yeah, just an amazing technology. I couldn't have imagined all the things that it does. Can you share an example of a fleet that significantly improved safety, fuel efficiency, or operational performance after implementing an Azuga telematics solution?
Yeah, we were lucky enough to work with one of our customers, APG Electric, and they are a beneficiary of all the telematics, AI, software as a service, IoT solutions we're speaking about today. And it's a great example, and it's honestly a very simple one, right? They achieved a 94% reduction in harsh driving events. That's it. I feel like the job is done in that from that perspective, right?
Sure.
When you translate that into improved safety, lower insurance costs, better driver morale through rewards and recognition, it really does show how quickly fleets can see the results when telematics is actively used, Rob. So that's a
Hmm.
quick and easy one. I have plenty of, examples of folks who have told us specifically they've saved in fuel costs or in payroll costs, to your point earlier or basically the usual stuff that a GPS would be able to provide you from an ROI perspective. But when we hear about that fleet safety and we hear about the ability to put yourself in a position to pay lower insurance, whether it is you just being rehabilitated from a safety perspective and having a better loss run, that when you're shopping your fleet for commercial automotive insurance, you're putting yourself in a better position to have a carrier accept you at a specific risk level, so you pay less. Or there are telematics friendly insurance carriers out there that if you have a driver behavior monitoring and coaching solution like Azuga, or there are certain ones out there that if you physically have Azuga, you automatically qualify for a premium discount because they already know that you are going to be a much safer fleet than amongst your cohort in your vertical, in your location, in your industry. And that to me is huge when we're talking about reducing the insurance component. And one last part I wanted to mention on that, and there's nothing better when the government mandates that you have to use the technology. We already enjoy that on the trucking side of our business. All trucking companies, by the government's mandate, have to have what they call the ELD, the
Sure.
electronic logging device, right? Whereas they plug in the unit and they can't fudge how often they're driving because it's the law in America that you can't drive more than 11 hours in a 14-hour day if you're a truck driver. And the only way to manage that now is by plugging in a telematics device and having an app to show a DOT officer or police officer that you are indeed in compliance. Otherwise, the fines are huge. I love that. I love when the government says you must buy Azuga, right? But what we saw in this was very recent, a couple of months ago. It was Louisiana. Louisiana is the first state that put a law in place that mandated the following to the insurance carriers. If your customer has a camera and a GPS solution that does driver behavior monitoring and coaching, you have to give them a premium discount. And that to me is huge. It's not government compliance, but it's insurance industry compliance. Because last I checked, we all kind of have to have insurance. It's kind of the law, right? On our vehicles, commercial or consumer. So the fact that we're seeing that, that's another example of, just that cost savings that we like to employ, you know. Obviously, APG Electric enjoying reduction in harsh braking, but now they're also enjoying, in a multitude of potential ways, less insurance costs.
Tracy, anything you want to add?
No, I think Chris nailed it on that one.
So you've got cost savings, efficiency improvements, driver safety, all wrapped up into one platform. That's impressive. It really is. When fleets evaluate telematics providers, what key capabilities or factors should they be looking for to ensure they choose the right platform?
Yeah. So, Rob, I'm not going to lie, we play in a very competitive space, right? There are a lot of telematics platforms that are out there. And I'll actually name the competitors so everyone has a basis of understanding is, you know, when we're talking about fleet telematics and if you're a fleet customer and you're evaluating these solutions, or if you're a technology advisor and you want to find a best-in-class platform to recommend to your client to help them be able to optimize their fleet management, right? There are companies like Geotab or Samsara or recently Motive. And Verizon has always been a player in this space, right? And we all have our competitive differentiators, right? When it comes to which platform should you choose. When it comes from when I'm talking to a fleet customer, what I want them to understand, consultating with them is you should look for an ease of deployment, right? A self-install is usually the best, right? To be able to take these devices without having to hire somebody to splice and dice in your vehicle and just plug them in a self-installed environment. Something of a strategy that we enjoy, right? An intuitive user experience. When you see these solutions, they're going to come at you with all these bells and whistles, and it's kind of overwhelming sometimes, right? But you want an intuitive UI that just basically feeds you exactly what you want or need to help better manage that fleet and provide that data to you on a silver platter, right? So the ease of use of the software as well, And then you always want the best in class, strong safety capabilities that you're hearing about that these AI cameras that can provide. And talking from an Azuga perspective, we feel we're right on par, best in class, with some great differentiators in the way that we're leveraging the power of AI with our video telematics solution. Equally important to that, Rob, are those actionable insights, right? That you need a platform like this to provide, not just raw data, along with integrations into the existing systems that you use or your fleet customer uses, and the ability to scale as the fleet grows. Let's go back to that for a second. There's been a trend in this industry of where you could potentially get your telematics solution from. If you are leasing vehicles, your fleet management company can provide this. If you are insured, sometimes your insurance company is recommending these solutions, right? If you're buying cell phones and tablets, sometimes AT&T and T-Mobile and Verizon are going to try to offer you the telematics, right? Because it's technically on their paper, all right? So that's a great way to see that from our perspective, there are multiple ways that a fleet owner can acquire a fleet telematics solution, right? But I can't stress enough how important it is to ask the question about integrated capabilities. Because if you're running a fleet, if you're a pest control or HVAC or landscaping company, I'm betting that you use a field service management software to run your business. The platform that you're using to do your job dispatching, your work orders, your time card, your payroll, your inventory, your core financials, basically like your mini ERP. You want the telematics data to report into that solution. So you could see the GPS on the dispatch board of your field service management platform. So you could have the locations go into your time card to make sure that your drivers were at that location for the amount of time that they said that they were, to help reduce overtime costs. You want that data to flow into the maintenance and asset modules within your field service management platform. You don't necessarily always want to live inside of your fleet management software platform, right? So you want these integrations to flow into your maintenance software, into your fuel card software. There are fuel cards there that will now, with an Azuga integration or a telematics integration, not even let you pump gas unless the vehicle is physically there in real time. Talk about reducing fuel fraud, right? So I'm a big fan of the integrated experience, right? And you want to choose a telematics provider that not only has the best in class, AI capabilities in 2026, but more importantly, allowing you as much as you can to live in that dream of a singular pane of glass by having this data report into the platforms you absolutely use to run your business, right? So I hope that makes sense, Rob, as to what I see when we're trying to advise somebody on key capabilities or factors they should be looking for to ensure the right platform.
No, great stuff. Tracy, anything you'd like to add?
I really like that Chris started with the ease of use because we hear that all the time. There's a lot of platforms out there that were developed by engineers, but they're for engineers. And not all fleet managers or operations managers have the technical capacity for some of these platforms, nor do they want to learn it. So the ease of use is really great. I'd add one other thing, and it's more from a purchase model. Their GPS has been around a long time. Telematics has been around a long time. Cameras are now the new wave. There are folks out there that have a solution. They've had a solution for a long time, but they don't want to change because they're concerned about the cost of the hardware. And we have in our subscription model, we have both CapEx and OpEx. So we do have a bundled opportunity for customers where they don't have to pay for hardware upfront, and it's a monthly reoccurring charge. We amortize the hardware over a specified term, and it just makes it easier for them to switch. Sometimes it's easy for a customer to say, well, I just went with my wireless carrier because I already get a bill from them. We're in the business of telematics. We're not in the business of being a wireless carrier, right? So the expertise is here and with your telematics providers. So I would just add that from a cost perspective, you don't have to pay for the hardware up front.
No, fantastic. All right, last question. I think we've covered just about everything, but how does Azuga differentiate itself from other telematic platforms in terms of safety, insights, and overall value for fleets?
Shameless plug time. I will take it. All right, here we go. So I think you heard a lot about the fact that we try to come at things from a thought leadership perspective today. One of our biggest differentiators is you, Rob, right? Your ability to synthesize this information from an IoT perspective, all these solutions that you know are floating around out there, and helping identify best in class ones, and more importantly, help advise your advisors as well as our customers who own and operate a commercial fleet. So first off, thank you for, being a thought leader in this industry and continuing to proliferate the IoT as a complement to the core offerings that we sell within the channel, right? When it comes to Azuga specifically, we differentiate that through a combination, as you heard today, of safety, of engagement, and ecosystem. We lead with the AI-powered cameras and the real-time coaching, but we also drive behavior change through the rewards and gamification, as you heard today. We deliver a strong ROI through fuel savings, operational efficiency, and insurance impact. And of course, as part of Bridgestone, we bring a unique advantage with tire intelligence and that nationwide service support, right? So for a tech advisor, Azuga to me is always a strong entry point into the IoT. It helps create opportunities to attach mobility, attach connectivity, attach data security, expand it to adjacent solutions, talk to people at the company you're targeting that you ordinarily don't get the interface with, go outside of IT, go outside of telecom, right? Go into operations, right? And then continue to help grow long-term customer value, right? That's how I feel we differentiate. Tracy, do you have any thoughts around that?
No, I love that. I love that response. I think, Rob, to Chris's point, it's you, it's your team, it's your advisors, and we appreciate, the opportunity to be with you today and each day as we go through different customer opportunities. So, you know, at the end of the day, it's safety, it's ensuring those drivers get home every night. It could be one vehicle, it could be hundreds of vehicles, it could be thousands of vehicles. So we don't put ourselves in a box. It's a wide range of opportunity for everyone.
No, great information today. Incredible platform, incredible crew over at Azuga, clearly. One thing I would suggest for folks that are watching this is you can either email us at info@technologysource.com, or you can go on to the Azuga website and run an ROI, plug in the number of vehicles, the number of hours a day it's being driven. You'll be able to see for yourself the return on investment. And what we found in most all the cases we've run is a 200% to 300% cost savings. So for every a dollar you spend on Azuga, you get $2 back. And we've seen it go as high as 300% ROI. So the platform really is amazing. So cost savings, efficiency improvements, obviously safety is a big thing for Azuga. Key differentiators, which are amazing, the Bridgestone service program, where you're saving 10% on tires and service. You've got 2,400 locations. That's just kind of crazy to believe that. Collision protection report and driver rewards, of course, tie everything up in a nice bow, all integrated into your existing platforms, scalable. What am I missing, Chris? Did I catch it all?
I think you caught it all. And the only last thing we have to catch is Rick's question that he has in the chat.
Let's answer it. Go ahead.
All right. So Rick had asked, can we talk a little bit about asset tracking and geofencing? Right? Rick,
Good
great
question, Rick.
call out because we kind of sometimes get so caught up in the safety journey that we love to help our customers and our advisors, deploy and enjoy. But there's meat and potatoes, as I always call it, to equipment tracking and asset tracking. So if we're talking specifically about a telematics platform, in addition to being able to track a vehicle and the vehicle's location and the vehicle's maintenance and the vehicle's efficiency and the vehicle's safety, you also need to track complementary and ancillary uh, assets as well, like a trailer or a tractor trailer or a very expensive non-powered asset that's part of the customer's journey, whether it's a generator, right, or a very expensive mowing tool, or whatever the case may be. So complementary to all these telematics platforms, and in particular ours, is the ability to not just track the vehicle, but also track an asset, right? And that's using a combination of solar-powered asset trackers, battery-powered asset trackers, hardwired asset trackers, and this new technology called BLE tags, right? Which you could put on a tool, right? And then that reads to a gateway, and you actually not only can provide visibility into a vehicle and visibility into an asset, but now visibility into a non-powered asset. And then
Hmm.
with that, and then you asked about geofencing, right? When you put a geofence, which is just basically in the portal defining a boundary, so you want actionable intelligence from that boundary you provided, like what time the vehicle, or hence the technician, got to a location, how long they were there for billing purposes potentially, or payroll purposes, and when they left, right? And you can utilize that combination of equipment tracking, vehicle tracking, and asset tracking and geofencing to really provide a very high level of operational visibility in general to use for a multitude of different operational needs, right? And efficiency needs as well, because you'll be able to tell